My best piece of advice for you guys when you're dealing with narcissistic relationships, narcissist friendships, borderline relationships, if you're dating somebody that has borderline personality disorder or narcissism, my best piece of advice to you guys is to not get attached. These people have incredibly horrible attachment styles, which means they often just cannot attach to you. So you'll be spending all your time investing in these people. You'll be spending your time helping these people. You'll be spending your time driving these people around. Maybe you're housing them. Maybe you're housing them on discounts. Maybe you're there for them. You do all kinds of stuff for them. And because you have a healthy attachment style, most likely you're an empath because that's who they're attracted to. They'll end up ripping your heart out in the end. They'll end up ghosting you. As soon as you're not doing what they want, they're gone. That's what they're like. That's how they operate. They see people as objects most often. Sociopathy, like antisocial personality disorder, can be linked with narcissism and borderline. So the people can have incredibly, like I said, just they have the inability to attach. So as soon as anything happens in the relationship, as soon as anything goes wrong, they will literally ghost you. They will literally just walk away from your life. So I just recommend just not getting attached because, if you get attached, you just end up getting hurt in the end. I'll let this car go by. Out on a walk right now. I've had a couple friendships that were friendships with people. Some of them had borderline, some of them had narcissist personality disorder, and I would literally get attached to these people, and they would literally just oftentimes just either they would break up with me for no reason because they were fearing that relationship status, or they would get what they wanted out of me and just leave. So when you're dealing with this style of person, my best piece of advice to you guys is to not get attached, because most often they have an inability to attach to you. So you just end up like me, with a broken heart. There was a woman I was really in love with, and I got attached to her. And then, she was a narcissist, and she had borderline, and she had antisocial personality. So she had like the worst combination for a female. And she would tell me, "Gee, Steve, you're the only one that can put up with me." One time she was literally crying over my shoulder at a bar, telling me that I was the only guy that could put up with her bullshit, and I was the only guy that cared about her, etc., etc. And then 2 weeks later, she ghosted me. 3 weeks later, she ghosted me. So, the entire time she was at my apartment, here I am, I'm getting attached to her. And then, the slightest fight, in my case, it was my landlord kicked her dogs out of my apartment. And then she literally left that day. She left. She packed her shit and left. So that's what you're going to get out of borderlines and narcissists. I had another borderline girlfriend I had. She fell into psychosis. She had a psychotic episode with her borderline. And she literally left state after I was her boyfriend for, a couple months. We were sexually active together. I cared about her a lot. I considered her like a girlfriend. And then one day she just left state with no notice. She literally just left state. Meanwhile, I had been getting attached to her the entire time. So that's my best piece of advice to you guys is, even with friendships, if you're dealing with a narcissist that's a friend, my recommendation is don't get attached to them. I was friends with a narcissist for like 7 years, getting attached to this person. And then we had some issues in our friendship. And then he literally just ghosted me. So he got new supply. He got a new girlfriend. And then he just dropped me like a bag of dirt after I'd helped him a lot for like 10 years. I helped his life a lot. And then he just ghosted out of my life. So that's why I say, even if your friends are Even if you're friends with a borderline or a narcissist, you know, you can be their friend, but just don't get attached. Because if you get attached, you're going to end up upset in the long run. You can end up with broken heart syndrome, which I actually had for several years. The girl I love literally broke my heart. I almost died from it. I almost committed suicide from it. So my recommendation to you guys is don't get attached, because you don't want to end up with, like me, with broken heart syndrome where you isolate for 4 or 5 years. You know, I stayed home every day for like 4 or 5 years and rarely left the house, rarely visited with people, because I was suffering from a broken heart. So that's what you're going to get when you fall in love with these borderline women, when you fall in love with these narcissistic type individuals. You're just going to end up upset in the long run. I think about the person that I loved a lot. I think about her all the time. I think about how much I miss her, how much I wish she was with me, and how much I wish we could be a loving couple. But because she had borderline and she had narcissism and she had antisocial personality, which literally was the worst combination for a girlfriend, you can't win with those disorders because they all have a bad attachment style. Even antisocial personality disorder has a bad attachment style. They view people as objects. Narcissists view people as objects. Borderlines can often, not in every case, but often view people as objects because they lack empathy. All 3 of those disorders lack empathy. So I would advise against getting attached, because you just end up hurt in the long run. I could have died from my disorder. I literally feel like I had broken heart disorder. You can die from that. And it was because I got attached to this woman. I cared about her. Meanwhile, she's crying over my shoulder at a bar saying, "You're the only guy that can love me. You're the only guy that can put up with my bullshit." 3 weeks later, she leaves after the landlord kicks her dogs out, completely leaving me upset. I mean, the same girl had ghosted me for 2 years, guys, over nothing. I literally had done nothing wrong. And then she comes back 2 years later after being homeless in her car, stays with me for 3 weeks, and then leaves again. And it's been over 2 years since I've seen this person. That's what you're going to get from narcissists. They're very selfish. Borderlines can be very selfish. Like, do you think it was mean of my borderline ex to just leave state without even talking to me about it? She literally went to the hospital for a psychosis, spent a month in the hospital. And then after she got out of the hospital, it was a mental health hospital. She had a borderline psychosis. After she got out of the hospital, she literally just jumped in a car and left state. Drove halfway across the country to her home state. Didn't talk to any of her friends. Didn't talk to me. I was like a boyfriend to her. Didn't talk to me. She was like in a psychosis and just left. So my best piece of advice for you guys is just don't get attached to these people, because they have unhealthy attachment styles, which means they can't meet your needs. They can't be a long-term friend. They can't be a long-term girlfriend. I mean, I was friends with a narcissistic guy for like 7 years. And like I said, we had some personal issues, you know. It was a rental situation he was upset about. And then literally ghosts out of my life for seemingly no reason, just ghosts out of my life. Here I'd been getting attached to this person the entire time, getting attached to my borderline girlfriends the entire time. They just leave state, they break up, they leave your apartment, they leave your house, seemingly for no reason. It can literally be over no reason other than the fact they may feel like triggered by the relationship, or triggered by you loving them too much, or triggered by you being too being too nice to them. I'm going to show you this guy, this really nice, beautiful night here. I'm out on like a 5 or 6 mile walk. But they can get triggered by the littlest shit, guys. Like the girl with the dogs. They were service animals. She had 2 service animals. Literally, my landlord kicks her dogs out. Boom, she's gone. She moves out of my apartment. That's what you're going to get from these borderlines. Impulsive behaviors. Like, do you know that there's actually something called impulsive borderline? Most likely one of my ex-girlfriends was an impulsive borderline because they do shit on the spur of a moment. Do you see how she just moves the fuck out without any regard for the future? Doesn't care about, 5-6 years down the road. What if she needed Steve's help for something? What if she needed to stay with Steve? Do you see how they'll just be completely rude to you, completely disrespectful? Like she just moves out without any regard for my feelings at all. Here I'd been sexual with this girl. We had sex numerous times. She knew I loved her. She knew I cared about her. But when you're dealing with borderline and narcissism, especially borderline, you can be dealing with co-occurring disorders. Narcissism can have co-occurring disorders. So you could be dating a narcissist that suffers from psychosis. You could be dating a borderline that suffers from psychosis. And so the bottom line is, guys, you can't get attached to these people because they have unhealthy attachment styles. Thank you so much for tuning into this video, guys. Check out the full moon if you can. And I hope you guys have a good one. Steve signing out. Bye.